I think, what we were talking about this morning together, but I think when Jesus is on the cross, his last and deepest prayer is, into your hands I commit my spirit. If you can't say that to God, you're going to self-protect with him. If you can't say to him, I throw myself into your mercy and protection at every level. If you can't say that, that means you got to protect at some level in relation to him. I pray that prayer. I'm like, in our bank of experience at this point with the Lord, I'm like, I don't care what happens. I'm not afraid to die at any level. I'm not afraid to die. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Like, let's do this thing. Let's get it going. And I feel like that's what Paul's saying. To live this is the hard part. Like, to die, that's like the great part. When you make that shift and think, this is not worth protecting.
Right.
Gosh, that is such a relief when you get over that hill. And like, do you really want to beg God for another Monday here? Like, that's the most valuable thing you could ever get from God. You're insane. That's insanity. But when you're willing to like give this up to get that, now you're normal. But it's hard to get there because we're so enamored with this. And so, yeah, I was just thinking, like, we were abducted together one time, which now we look back is hilarious, but with our kids. And in that whole scenario, Donna would always say to me, if we get kidnapped, don't let them separate us. Like, if we ever got kidnapped, I would have control over the abductors going, we're willing to be abducted, but we're not going to be separated at any, like, we're going to put our foot down on the separation part. Like, Donna would like, give them the rules of the abduction before we get there. That's Donna's 6 in action. Mine's
forecasting
like,
the abduction.
And I'm like, let's just be abducted in any way possible. That's a 7, being abducted.
We'll make it fun. It'll be a game.
This is Enneagram for people who are
so then we get abducted. And of course they separated us. And Donna's like, don't let them separate us. I'm like, they're masked gunmen. They're not asking for a vote here. They're taking me there and you're going there. But in that whole situation, it's interesting how it's slow. I find this in those situations, it slows down so that you can take each moment captive. That's so amazing to me. You know how it happens? Every time we've been in those kind of situations, it's like time doesn't control it. For us, time controls everything. But in truth, time doesn't really control anything. And so when you're in those places where God, his grace, you're at a deeper level of his grace, it's like time goes out the window and the whole thing slows down to where you can grab each moment and stay present. You can stay in the present because the present's very slow. And so like they're screaming and yelling and waving, their guns and all that stuff and people are freaking out. But it's like you're in this kind of slow motion place, where you can like.
Well, maybe you were.
And our kids were. And our kids were in the slow motion. Yeah, anyway.
Well, when you're the only woman and there's all these scary men, it's a little different.
So how have you built it? I'm going to put my cards out and this may not be right, but it almost seems like you've gotten to a place where you almost instinctively do these things. Yes. Whereas like for me, I have to, like when you're talking about taking captive, I'm like, you're just taking captive subconsciously in your sleep at this point. But for me, it's very difficult. And I almost feel like I have to use the intellect to do it. How have you gotten yourself to the point where you're able to say like, into your hands I commit my spirit. And it's like, it's almost it's part of your identity now. It's habitual.
That's right.
How did you do that?
I think it's any kind of training. It's any kind of discipleship. It's you practice in the small things, in the quiet times, the peaceful times. You practice and you practice and you practice. And this is what, it's funny how people are like, we don't have any good discipleship anymore. It's the wrong kind of discipleship. It's like Jesus taking the disciples up into the Galilee. He doesn't want them in the heavy duty conflict of Jerusalem yet. They're not ready, but he takes them into the Galilee, but he puts them in pretty intense fear. Situation, puts them in and pulls them back out, puts them in and pulls them back out. He's trained in places where they're terrified and they're with people they would never want to be with in a million years, but then he pulls them back out of it. And then he shows them how to do it and he pulls them back out of it. It's like a good coach. And it's not, they're sitting in a classroom reading books about it. They're in it and then they're out of it and then they're in it and out of it. And then he's reviewing it and training it in these quiet but intense places, building them for the day when he's okay, now we're going into Jerusalem. And so I feel like, it's kind of like how a child should be raised, but in discipleship programs, I think like this is why sports coaching and all that is so good is like and parents that so protect their kids is like not healthy, right? It's like, it's because you're so protected and guarded that nothing bad can happen to you and God doesn't want anything bad to happen to you. But it's the way humans are made. You're trained and you're disciplined and you get hurt and you fall down and you encounter mean people and you have guidance in it, but you're still allowed to experience it. That's what I feel like has to happen. And then, I think that's the way it is. And our kids are our kids were fortunate that they grew up in a world as Jewish kids in a Muslim world. Like they were kind of forced to realize, we have to live in a world that hates Jewish people, but we can be absolute best friends in this world. Like, why can't that happen? Why do we have to go by what's said? So then, wouldn't you say that's the discipleship program of God? And
talking about it being instinctual, that verse about taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ, I realized some years ago, that means every thought, not just the bad thoughts, right? Take every thought captive. And so again, it comes back to that question of what do you want me to know? What do you want me to know about your love? What do you want me to know about my identity? What do you want me to know about that person? Take every thought captive and then live with intention into that obedience. And remember the word obedience, we equate it with punishment. I better obey or I'm in big trouble with God. But actually the Hebrew word means to listen and respond. So to listen and respond to God is better than sacrifice. He wants us to have that intimate relationship. So how does it become instinctual? It's just living with intention. And so, it's little deaths and resurrection. It's back to the fear question with this intention. It's recognizing that every day you're dying to yourself. You're not living in this self-protection and self-promotion. So when am I protecting myself against another person or against God? Die to that immediately. Recognize it, because it's a coping mechanism to what you're afraid of. I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid they're going to see a part of me that I don't want them to see. And it's this death and resurrection every day, getting ready for the big death and resurrection. I had this great mentor a long time ago who said, remember your baptism every day. Remember your baptism every day. You're going under the water, the old person that self-protects. You're going down every day and coming up a new creation in Christ. Remember, it wasn't a one-time thing, never one and done. Remember it every day.